Hey YouTube, we are back, and this time we are going to be going over tips and tricks and how I approach level 10 Super Helldive bot missions. These can be pretty tricky, especially on tier 10. There is a ton of high tier enemies and ragdoll everywhere, but I want to try and help you guys kind of tackle them, give you guys some good loadouts and some suggestions on what I'd recommend using, and how to navigate around the map as a team. And we're going to cover that in this video. All right. Getting to the Hell Pod. Okay, so when we are selecting our current drop location, similar to the bugs, I've been finding going for the fortress immediately is a fairly good option, just so you're not dealing with nearly as many reinforcements and so on and so forth later in the mission. Throwing yourself at these early is better than late game when you are assaulting it with tons of samples on you and maybe some other objectives going on at the same time. Tackling it immediately, taking this off the map is a really good way, especially when they're this close to the extraction zone. It means that if you get the version of Fortress with 3 confidential data heads, you can run those immediately over to the extraction zone, drop them off, and then go about the rest of the mission. Typically, when I look at a map like this, I'm going to typically say I'm going to go for a clockwise rotation. That way we can, get as many of the fabricators along the way, get some side objectives, and grab both of the main objectives with a rotation to the end. And then it's a quick sprint to the end of the mission, right? To the extraction. Just remember, I said it in my bugs video, but when you finish the main objective, I'm sure many of you guys have noticed that the mission gets a lot harder all of a sudden. Definitely want to try and finish the main objective at the end of the map clear if you guys are going for that. If you guys are planning on extracting, just finish the main objective immediately and then get the hell out of there. You're going to notice more patrols. You're going to notice a shorter bot timer from time to time. It's getting shorter throughout, every time you kill fabricators and so on and so forth, it's getting shorter. But when you finish the main objective, things amp up quite a bit. So definitely want to try and get that done last. All right. So assuming we're jumping over here, let's go into our main loadout. Starting off with armor this time. Medium, heavy, probably your best to go to sets. As far as armor passives, I've been leaning a lot towards explosive resistance at the moment, just because those new rockets from the Scout Striders are deadly. And if they land anywhere near you, they are doing tons of explosive damage. So I've definitely been leaning on that a little bit more than I used to, especially if I have the supply backpack. So I've got tons of stims regardless, and I have the extra tankiness that the explosive resistance. I'd highly recommend if you are just finding yourself frustrated with dealing with the new Striders, the random rockets flying over your head and some are landing on you. This will reduce the amount of deaths. If I'm running something like the autocannon or something that I'm not using the supply backpack for, I'm probably going to take the butcher for the extra stims just to keep me alive a little more. If you are someone that loves your stuns or your impacts, engineer armor is always a great pick if that's something you need. If you want that scout armor, remember you can grab the medium scout over here for someone who likes going off by themselves. Even though I didn't say it in the previous segment, but I should have. I highly recommend moving as a unit in the tier 10 missions, at least until we get more comfortable, and then we turn them into the tier 9 missions where you kind of go off in your separate directions and go on one-man strike teams. But supporting each other when those big bot drops happen is invaluable. Also, one other minor thing I forgot to mention in the previous is that when you're going around the map, I highly recommend firing off at enemies in the distance and trying to trigger bot drops super far away from you, and then just run in the opposite direction. It's incredibly useful to get that thing on timer so you don't have to deal with it when you're doing the main objective, right? Super, super useful. Also, another good strategy is just hey, if you're approaching a main objective, maybe go piss off some patrol in the distance and then run away as it's calling in the bot drop. A lot of those bots will never get to you. They maybe even despawn if you run far enough away, which is useful, very useful. All right, probably the final thing for the armor is this Fortified Commando. It's a fairly good option, if you just want general tankiness and you don't really need, any of the recoil reduction or anything like that. Extra padding still needs a little bit of love. I do wish it had flinch resistance or something as a second perk on here, because it does kind of suck that it's just going up one armor tier while staying the same ability. Would like it to have a little bit more love. All right, going into weapons, I do think you can use quite a few of the ARs in the bot missions, as long as you're fairly accurate at tapping those eyes on bots. Adjudicator is always a solid option if you aren't as accurate, but you still want to have an AR in your hand. Tenderizer is fun. I think it's a double tap to a Devastator's eye. So it's if you really want to use an AR, I don't think they're bad options or anything like that in bot missions. Counter Sniper Diligence is a fun pick if you like picking off Devastators at distance. One tap to the eye, give it a chance. Obviously, your SMGs are here if you're like doing those missions with the SSSD. They're fun to have, or if you're taking the ballistic shield, good luck. Pummeler is probably the better choice out of the two, just because you can stagger lock them. Punisher is a solid option. Same with the Slugger. Lots of stagger. If you want to not have to worry about aiming, Punisher. If you want to worry about aiming a little more and tapping them in the eye, you got the Slugger. Wouldn't necessarily recommend any of the other shotguns. Crossbow and Eruptor are fantastic for picking of like your support weapons that don't have the ability to take out fabricators. So I'll typically take it with like my HMG or a laser cannon or an AMR loadouts, just so I can like long range snipe my fabricators still. Dominator is a fantastic choice. Many of you already know. You got tons of stagger, tons of alpha damage, and it's fairly accurate, even when spam firing it. So if you have a lot of like berserker hordes coming at you and you're really getting annoyed with them, Dominator is a great choice. Try and tap in the eye. You might get a lucky one tap here and there. Punisher Plasma is great CC and good like overall like AoE damage up close. I do recommend. It can sometimes be a little bit of a hindrance at long range, but if you can learn the arc, you can definitely do it. Blitzer, I don't recommend. It doesn't do very well because of the range problem. It's even worse than the Plasma Punisher, and Heavy Devastators just laugh at you because they're sitting behind their shield. Scythe can be okay, but if you want to use the Scythe, I highly recommend the Sickle. It's got better scope, better for tapping eyes, and got the limited ammo. Scorcher, it's got a little bit of an ammo economy problem, but it's just very easy to use and straightforward. Good against tanks and radiators. Purifier, give it a chance. Just play slower. Don't use it like a Scorcher. Use it more like a Diligence counter sniper, right? Play a little bit farther back. It's like a long range Punisher Plasma. It's very useful at like CC locking, large groups of Devastators, and it's fairly proficient at like dealing with like heat sinks and so on and so forth. So give it a try. As for your pistols, I'm typically bringing like my Redeemer, my Verdict, or the Senator. Grenade pistol if I absolutely need something and I'm not taking like the Eruptor or something like that in my primary slot. But for the most part, those are my top three. Dagger can be okay if you like tapping eyes, or like Bushwhacker if you need some instant CC, but I wouldn't recommend the other options. All right, going into boosters, Hell Pod Optimization is just an instant must. Vitality booster for the extra HP and limb health is great. I can't see someone not wanting to take it. Stamina enhancement, I've seen some people say that you don't need it as much on bot missions, which is fair. You're definitely not running as much and in combat, so moving a little bit slower around the map does not matter as much. And, if you want to swap it out for localized confusion, if you feel like you're getting overwhelmed by bot drops, that extra breathing room of 30 to 45 seconds is quite nice. Experimental infusion, great for those situations where there's just so much crap coming in on you. It's really nice to just have like a little bit of it's like more of a get out of free jail card. Muscle enhancement for any of those planets that have like the blizzards or the sandstorms or just lots of mud or any kind of terrain that's bothering you. It's a great pick. Unironically, increased reinforcement budget can help you quite a bit if you're still learning Super Helldive and you feel like you're just running out of revives too fast. Those extra 4 can be very useful on a full team. It wouldn't be one of my top picks, but if you feel like you're just, if only we had a couple more revives right at the end of a mission, maybe this can really help you out. But if you're someone who's like, if you're in a group that's like either like running out of revives way too soon, like 10 to 20 minutes into a mission, this definitely wouldn't help you. Or if you're a team that's like only 10 or so revives, this obviously would not help you at all. All right, going into stratagem picks, I think we're going to start off with the support weapons. Commando is a great support weapon, but I wouldn't necessarily bring it as your primary. I'd bring it as like a secondary to snipe fabricators at distance or to help you with like a factory strider, a tank, or a Hulk. Wouldn't recommend either mech. They're just going to get killed too easily from a laser cannon turret or something, especially now. Hidden buff to factory striders, by the way. You probably have noticed they do a double shot now. They're even more deadly than they were before. That top turret is pretty damn scary. So, do consider maybe bringing a thermite or trying to snipe it at longer ranges with a AT weapon. All right, going into it, I can't recommend the Stalwart. I just can't. Obviously, you know that the autocannon is probably the king for the vast majority of people watching this. Highly recommend the autocannon still. Having 3 stratagems, like offensive stratagems aside from this, is really good because it gives you that backpack with tons of ammo. It's just really easy to use. It's by far the meta. It's the most effective tactic available for sure. All right. HMG with supply backpack is a awesome combo. Super fun. You always have stims available, always have stuns available, and you always have ammo available for the HMG. It's a great choice. Grenade pack, if you just feel like you're just getting ragdolled too much, I do recommend maybe grabbing that and maybe like a support weapon that you feel like has quite a bit of ammo in reserve, like an anti-material rifle. Just try not to spam the anti-material rifle too much. I don't recommend that. Railgun is in a much better spot, and I do recommend it now. It's like 2 to 3 railgun shots to a gunship's engine now with the changes to gunships. And it was the support weapon that got affected the most positively. So I do recommend checking it out. It's fun. It's a lot of fun to go back to a weapon that I feel like I haven't really used in bot missions ever since they added gunships. So, give it a try. It's still not great against tanks or laser cannon turrets, but it is extremely good versus Devastators. Just aim like somewhere in their upper chest after the click ends of the unsafe railgun. Like, it'll just one tap so many back to back. The new Scout Striders as well. One tap anywhere on them, dies. It's great. Laser cannon goes in the same role as like an HMG. It's good, but you got to be very precise with it, and flinch is your worst enemy. Arthur doesn't quite have enough range. Both of the guard dogs aren't very useful, mostly because they're only good really against tier 1 bots. And if you're struggling against tier 1 bots, I feel like tier 10 difficulty is probably not for you. Just whip out your sidearm. That's it. That's all you need. Whip out your sidearm. You can kill the vast majority of them. Spear is a good option for like your blitz missions or sniping the tops of Factory Striders on your defense missions. But other than that, I wouldn't really recommend for standard 40-minute missions. It just doesn't have enough ammo, and there's way too many targets that you want to shoot with this thing. So unless you got a teammate that's following you around, resupplying you, I can't really recommend. You're just going to eat up so much ammo so fast. Grenade launcher is not a bad choice if you feel like you're getting like overwhelmed by heavy devastators and rocket devastators and so on and so forth. It's an easy 2-tap, lots of stagger, and you can really spam this like as artillery at like medium to long range. It's kind of cool. So bring that with the supply backpack, and you just spam at any drop ships that come. Like as they're flying in, shoot the undercarriage, and they will fall. It's great. It's great. MG43, not quite as good as the heavy machine gun, just because you can't deal with Hulks. I do like it, but dealing with Hulks with the HMG is just so much better. It's only 5 shots to the eye versus not being able to pen the eye at all on the machine gun. It makes a big difference. Laser shield is okay, but like I said, I think there's just so much stagger going on that the Blizzard Shield just, like, it's great versus heavy devastators. I love it for heavy devastators, but you have to sacrifice taking a better primary weapon, and you no longer have the ability to take a backpack, either a shield or a supply backpack. And you're taking this thing, and there's just so much stagger out there. Supply backpack, instant pick for me a lot of the time. A lot of the missions I'm going on, I'm like doing like a HMG plus a supply backpack, and it just works so well together. Or HMG and AMR, or like AMR plus supply backpack, really good. Laser cannon and supply backpack, you can be that teammate that doesn't really need the ammo, but you can spread it the love in that regard. What else do we have here? EAT, fairly good option for sniping some tanks at medium range. And Quasar, you already know that like both AT weapons are just not as useful when you're dealing with like 4 Hulks at a time. Having to wait 12 and a half seconds to 15 seconds on a lot of these planets is a tough ask, and then needing to reload in combat just so you can take out one more Hulk. I just feel like I'd rather use the anti-material rifle. As far as turrets go, highly recommend the mortars, especially the EMS mortar. Having one person on your team, it is very good to use that. HMG emplacement is a really fun one, especially if you can get your team to kind of protect you or take some of the aggro away from you so rocket devastators aren't bullying you. You can take out almost an entire bot drop with one HMG emplacement if you have good accuracy and something doesn't like one tap you like a factory strider, right? Don't recommend the mines. Rocket Sentry is pretty good. Just like I said, try to keep the rocket devastators away from it, but it can help you if you feel like you're getting overwhelmed by gunships now. It is your SAM turret. It's great. Autocannon's pretty damn good. Gatling for like maybe berserker spam. It's really good for mowing down berserkers. Wouldn't necessarily recommend anti-tank mines as well. Just too long of a cooldown. And you need to make sure enemies are walking over them versus I just take an Eagle airstrike so I can just spam it and it's on a 2-minute cooldown. Way better. Shield generator doesn't have enough health and doesn't last long enough. I would much rather take something more offensive. And, the saying of, offensive is like your best defensive sometimes. It really does come into this. I hope that they buff the shield generator in the future so it's a little bit more proficient at just dealing with like, rocket spam or heavy devastator spam. If 3 heavy devastators are shooting at your bubble shield, it's going down in a couple seconds. It is not very tanky. So hopefully in the future they get some buffs. All right, going into our offensive stratagems, I absolutely love the 380, the 120. It is great at just like, I hold on to them just for when the bot drop's coming in and I throw that right in the dead center and it will kill like half the enemies a lot of the time when that bot drop is coming in. It's so good for it. It's great. Highly recommend either 120 or the 380. Having like 1 or 2 on a team, very useful. If you stack them up together, you're just increasing the likelihood that that bot drop is like null and voided. It's great. Bringing a precision strike is awesome for taking out tanks and like, you know, your sensor towers. Like I will often either bring a precision strike or my 500 kg just to deal with detector towers. It's so nice to just be able to toss it over the wall and not have to get in there with your hell bomb. Also, using your precision strike versus tanks, especially the new tank that's kind of buggy, where like the bottom carriage like can blow up, but then the top part is still shooting. Using a stratagem does instantly kill it because you can like use it and it blows up both components. Obviously, you already know that the Eagle Airstrike is fantastic. It's just a good all-arounder dealing with, you know, mass hordes, dealing with your factory striders, and so on and so forth, dealing with your tanks. It's great. Really nice to have at least one or two of these on your team. Gatling Barrage is okay, but I just feel like bots separate out so much more that it doesn't get as much usage, and it just like overkills the territory or like an area. Walking Barrage has the issue of, I feel like it's only useful in like a strip of land and it walking towards you. It just doesn't happen as much. I would just rather bring the 380 and throw it at base or throw it at a bot drop than a Walking Barrage. But if you are finding yourself running away a lot and you have this long stream of like bots behind you, the value of it, I'm sure, will be exponentially higher than like bringing a 380 and they needing to constantly walk into it, right? EMS site can be okay, but I can't recommend necessarily. Just EMS mortar is just better. Just bring the EMS mortar, it's better. Orbital gas, can't recommend just because they need to stay in it. Orbital rail cannon, I see a lot of usage on the lower difficulties, but on the higher, I'd recommend just bringing stun grenades and using your support weapon to kill those hulks that surprise you. It just isn't very good versus other things other than that panic situation, but Cluster bomb can be fairly useful if you feel like you're getting overwhelmed by Devastator strikes, so maybe having one person, you know, that takes out like the mass hordes of Devastators at a distance, it's pretty damn good. Airburst usually just overkills an area too much. I feel like you're better off taking the cluster bomb. Laser's fairly good still, but there's so many hulks that it feels less effective. Like you can't really throw it at a base anymore and expect it to clear the entire base because there's just so many more targets that like it probably won't go after all of the fabricators and like kill all the hulks as well. Already talked about Orbital Precision. Napalm is okay. And 110s are good for your tanks, but that's where it about ends. Tanks and I guess your laser cannon turrets, but I feel like I would rather take something else other than my 110s just because they're not always super effective at targeting your hulks and one-shotting them. I would love to see it do a little more damage and be better at tracking them and, you know, in the future maybe be able to take out factory striders. That would be nice. All right, so some final thoughts on how to approach my tier 10 super Helldives is, you know, walk around as a team as much as possible. And if you do want to split up, stay in groups of 2. I feel like it's too often that I will get like, you know, ragdoll spammed and then die. And then not having that teammate that's able to, you know, call you in is just, it's pretty rough. Especially now that like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, a lot of the side objectives and like side fabricators and stuff like that usually have 1, 2, maybe 3 hulks in every single one. Having that extra teammate that can just like, you know, you can lean on to help, you know, stun or take out a hulk that you didn't see coming is very useful. You don't have to be holding hands the entire time, but like, you know, being nearby to your teammates can be very, very helpful. Anything else? No. Let me know, guys, what you guys think of the video. Comment down below. What are you guys using? What are you guys bringing to your bot drives? Is there anything I missed? I'm really enjoying the level 10. It's been a lot of fun to just quick play and help people through it, and also just like with friends, just dominate. So if you guys are interested, I stream every morning on Twitch. You can come on by, and we've been doing Super Helldive, both Terminids and bots. Tomorrow, Sunday, we're going to be doing Sub Sunday, but we play with followers as well. Yeah, come on by. There's Discord link down below if you're just looking to talk while we're off stream. And yeah, thanks, YouTube. Have a great one.